Uh, a couple of days later, I went to Minneapolis with the intentions to bury my husband. But when I got there, it was almost as if I had pulled the trigger myself. Um, I'd never, I've never been in that situation before. I've never had to bury anyone. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to start. I've been to funerals. I've lost family members. I've lost friends, but I've never had to be the preparer of someone else's funeral. Um, I I'm sorry, excuse me, you guys. It was the most chaotic situation that I had ever experienced. Many of you have experienced this. It's like I couldn't. It was so chaotic that I couldn't grieve properly. I did not grieve properly. I was not in a position financially to bury my husband, and I and I didn't have anyone else to support me in the decisions that I was trying to make as his wife. Um, After my husband sat in the morgue for 11 days while his family and I tried to come upon some sort of arrangements, they actually left. And I had my husband cremated. And I had these necklaces made for each one of his children with the hopes that each one of them could have their dad with them. Uh, Left Minnesota, went back home, trying to just start anew. And so we came back to Georgia. No, we left Minnesota. Minnesota, it was me, my mother, and my child, my husband's son. We left Minnesota. We missed our flight. So we were stranded. It was on Christmas Eve. I had been there for almost 2 weeks. I was tired. I was stressed. I was sad. I felt empty. And the only thing that I needed right at that point was to be able to get back to my children. So we left. It was Christmas Eve. We missed our flight. We were stranded at the airport. Um, we made it into Georgia the night of Christmas Eve. When we got here, the transit center was shut down. I lived in the suburb. I didn't have a car at the time. And my mother and I we ended up at this restaurant in like Stone Mountain, Georgia, which is probably 30 minutes from where I lived at. And this guy came in and we overheard him talking, and we ended up asking the stranger for a ride, and so he gave us a ride. I mean, he was very nice. He even stopped at the store, left us in the car with the car running heat on, and I make a joke about it because he came back and he's like, y'all, all right, y'all didn't steal my car. So we laughed about it, and he took us home, and my kids were so excited that I was home, and we woke up together as a family on Christmas Day. When I We lived in this house in Snellville, Georgia, and again, I didn't have a car at the time. It's like living on Gilligan's Island. There was no transit system. There was no train. There was nothing. There was nothing. There was no one. If I needed to go to the store, I had to walk maybe 3 miles, 4 miles to get to the store. And in the Georgia heat, when it's 90 degrees, it's 190 degrees. So it was hot. It was new, but I felt the need to embrace it, and I felt the need to accept this change that I've made and make it what I need to be for me and for my kids. And so we stayed here in Georgia, and ended up having another son a few years later. And at the time when I left Minnesota, I was on a probation. I'm not gonna just kind of run back and through that and just give you guys the whole story. But at the time, I had decided to operate a property management company. Unbeknownst to me, you can't operate a property management business in Minnesota without a real estate license. So it landed me with a felony conviction, and so I was on probation for that. And when I had my son, I had, of course, relocated to Atlanta 2 years prior to that. So the conditions of the probation never had me doing anything other than just basically staying out of trouble, which wasn't a problem. They gave me 10 years probation. 10 years. 10 years of probation. So I moved to Georgia, and I had just had my son maybe 3 months prior to that. And to this April day, I had my son in January. And this April morning, I'll never forget it. I was nursing my child, and I had nursed my son this morning, and I went to go make a run to the store. A policeman was behind me. I got pulled over. I asked him, what did he pull me over for? He told me, well, you have a felony warrant in Minnesota. I'm like, for what? He said, it's a probation violation. I was then transported to the Gwinnett County Jail, where I stayed there for almost a month before I was actually picked up and transported to Minnesota in a cargo van for 11 days before I got to Minnesota. But en route to this Minnesota jail, we stopped at a rest stop, and they took us out to use the restroom. Now, mind you, we were in county orange jumpers. We're shackled, we're handcuffed to each other, and they escort us into the restroom. And as they were doing the handcuffs, as we took our turns to go into the restroom, I was standing there, and this lady walked up to me, and she said, "Excuse me." She said, "Do you mind if I pray for you?" She said, "I was walking by, and God said, don't walk past that lady. She's not supposed to be here. And your spirit called out to me." She was like, "Do you mind? Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Please do." And she hugged me and she prayed for me. And I just was like, thank you, God. You're still watching over me. Yeah, I'm on this journey, but He's still watching over me. So we continued on to Minnesota. We got to Minnesota. Uh, I did end up being released shortly after getting to Minnesota. And just like they would say, like, well, you have to stay here. You can't go back to Georgia. You got 10 days to get back to Georgia to wrap up your affairs. You have to stay in Minnesota. I made arrangements, when I got my children, left everything that we had behind, and we came to Minnesota to start over. Luckily, I had worked for the Salvation Army previously, and so I kind of reached out to some contacts that I had there, and our family was adopted for Christmas, and someone else adopt Mattress Giant. They adopted us, and like they came into our new house and they brought us everything, everything, uh, brand new beds, pillows, you name it. They brought it to us, and now we were making a life back in Minnesota, with definitely without a desire to be there. I had just lost my husband here 3 years ago. I didn't want to deal with the baby mamas. I didn't want to deal with oh, this is what she did at her husband's funeral. She didn't do this. I just moved to a city that I never lived in. Out of the 17 years that I lived there, I've never lived in St. Paul. So I moved to St. Paul, where we stayed. We lived out our lease, and then we moved back to Atlanta. I was off probation then. Crazy as that is, you know how the government is. You uproot our life and you say you got to go back to Minnesota. And then that year later, I got a letter saying that was released from probation, and I had only been out of the 10-year probation sentence. I had served maybe 4 or 5 at that point. So as soon as they released me from probation, I was done with Minnesota. Like, goodbye. We came back to Atlanta, and this is where we've been. I've ventured out into back into the salon and started doing hair in the salon. Still working on the novel. Just kind of been the day to day life of working and mom, and the time to write is so far and few. So that's why you find me really excited about this today. But I started doing that, and when I got to Georgia, I realized that Georgia, when I tell you that Georgia will either make you or break you, Georgia will either make you or break you. I've experienced things here that I've never experienced nowhere else. Like, and if you come here and this is a place and you don't know anyone, and th- when I tell you Georgia will make you man up, honey. Georgia has made me man all the way up. Put your feelings in your pockets and you got to get out here and get it. This is Georgia. So there was so many times, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys and tell you that, and it's just like, oh yeah, and no, absolutely positively not. I've cried, I've laughed, and I'm telling you guys my story because I know that, all of us have one, and I don't want you to think that I'm building this platform and I'm just like, oh, I want you guys to let me be nosy. No, I'm gonna let you be nosy. I'm gonna tell you who is Selena and why I am doing what I am doing today. And it's not because, oh, they're like, oh, well, her son's a rapper, no, my son is a rapper, an aspiring artist. Yes, he's had more opportunities than the average young person out here that desires to be a rapper, but to the point to where he's financially able to support his family, that's not the case. So it's so funny because people, they try to put you on this platform or in this space that makes it easier, that takes away the light on them and makes it easier on you. Oh, well, yeah, oh, she got it good because, oh, her son, this. And, oh, that's not the case. At the end of the day, I am a single mom. I have 5 kids. I've raised 5 kids. I have been through hell and high water. I've been through domestic abuse. I've been in jail. I've been taken away from my kids. I've been in every fucking situation that you can possibly think that a woman can go through. I've experienced it. And to the point to where it's like I said, there's a song and it says, God only give you more than you can bear. And I truly believe it because it's like, I gotta be a superhero. I have to convince myself that I'm invincible because you can't go through half these things and still wake up every day and put the energy into trying to be a better person, still putting the energy into trying to help another person. Uh, so I just want to be able to reach you all, and man, I want you all to understand that a lot of, especially like when you're the social media friends, you're on social media, and no, I'm not going to get on social media and say, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm short on my rent this month, y'all. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to get on social media. I'm going to post my accomplishments just as most of us do. You do have your small few that will get on there and God help them. They want to post the pictures in the hospital and the behind the glass jail visits, and we just gonna pray. It's just okay. That's their page. They can post their status, whatever they like. To each his own. But that's not what I'm gonna do. So if you follow my social media page and you like, oh well, oh yeah, she got this nice house, and she got this nice house, but oh my God, you gotta understand, she's been here for 7 years. She ain't always lived like this. You understand what I'm saying? She's been here for 7 years. She ain't had 7 years of consistent employment. She's been here 7 years. She don't have 7 friends here. So when I tell y'all that to be as open and to be as honest, a lot of people aren't willing to do that. I'm